1.2 million of these.
The new score is Sacramento population is about 500,000. Sacramento metro is 2 million people. So your 2 million statistic is still valid.
2 million?
Metro area.
Okay, you need a bigger warehouse already. I do think it is worth looking into and seeing what we can do about doing 2 million of these copies. The Jehovah's Witnesses do it regularly with Watchtower in 232 languages every month. So, and they do millions and millions and millions. So, we can at least do this. What do you think? Okay. So let's see. First, we offer our respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who very kindly brought us these teachings beyond birth and death. And chapter 1 says, we are not these bodies. Dehe nityam avadyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore you need not grieve for any living being. Bhagavad Gita 2:30. The very first step in self-realization is realizing one's identity as separate from the body. I have a question for you all. What's the very first step in the process of self-realization? Correct. I'll read the first sentence again. The very first step in self-realization is realizing one's identity as separate from the body. I have a question for you. What's the very first step in self-realization? Realizing one's identity separate from the body, right?
Yes.
First sentence says the very first step in self-realization is realizing one's identity as separate from the body. I am not this body, but am spirit soul, is an essential realization for anyone who wants to transcend death and enter into the spiritual world beyond. It is not simply a matter of saying, I am not this body, but of actually realizing it. This is not as simple as it may seem at first. Although we are not these bodies, but are pure consciousness, somehow or other, we have become encased within the bodily dress. If we actually want the happiness and independence that transcend death, we have to establish ourselves and remain in our constitutional position as pure consciousness. That's the first paragraph of the book that we're going to distribute 2 million of here in the greater Sacramento area. 2 million. So, what did it say? The first paragraph. Let's just hear what you heard so far. Any points?
We are not this body, we are...
Good. Take the mic. Because when you speak in the mic, then all the devotees that are online can hear you too.
That we are in this body. We are the spiritual soul.
You're not the body, but your spiritual soul. Okay, very good. What else did you hear?
We are pure consciousness.
Okay, I'll repeat. We are pure consciousness. Okay? Anything else?
Realizing we are not this body is the first step in self-realization.
Very good. From the first sentence, yes. Anything else we can extract? Now listen to it again. I'm going to read the first paragraph again and listen for nuance and then reflect back to me, okay? So listen very carefully. Are you ready? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. The very first step in self-realization is realizing one's identity as separate from the body. I am not this body, but am spirit soul, is an essential realization for anyone who wants to transcend death and enter into the spiritual world beyond. It is not simply a matter of saying, I am not this body, but of actually realizing it. This is not as simple as it may seem at first. Although we are not these bodies, but are pure consciousness, somehow or other, we have become encased within the bodily dress. If we actually want the happiness and independence that transcend death, we have to establish ourselves and remain in our constitutional position of pure consciousness. Now before we take your reflections, because you probably heard more the second time, Ronald, how much are these? Wholesale from the BBT.
Probably like 30 cents.
Okay. Figure out how much 2 million is going to cost us. These are 30 cents from the BBT, 38 cents? 40 cents each. 48 cents? Keeps going up. I should have stopped at 30 cents. What is this, inflation? Huh?
If you print more, it'll be cheaper.
Okay.
It'll probably be like
96,000.
Okay. So, what's the... Did you look it up online?
960,000.
$960,000? Let me see how much I have. Who's our treasurer? Do we have a treasurer? Here, whatever's in here, this is the first donation towards the... Who's the treasurer? Whoever's the treasurer should jump up and run when you see money. Come on, there's cash in here. Come and get it. Hurry, run. Seriously. This is for these. You have to put it in a special place, okay? Start a special account for beyond birth and death. Okay? Because we need 900 and how much? $960,000. That's what we need. So keep your eye on that. Write that goal down. Damodar, write it down. Put it up on a chart. We need $960,000. We need 2 million of these. And we also need distributors, and we need them fast. And we also need you to map out the city. Can you start doing that? Yes? Figure out how we're going to, you two. Yeah, both of you work together. Figure out how we're going to map out the whole city and get one of these books to everybody. Thank you. Okay, now what did you hear?
The first part is we are separate from
Okay, use the mic.
We are separate from this body.
Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
It is not the mere understanding, but it is
Yeah.
realization.
Okay, yeah, let me read that sentence because it's very profound, right? It is not simply a matter of saying I'm not this body, but of actually realizing it. This is not as simple as it may seem at first. That's what you're referring to, right? Hey, you can say I'm not this body, but then realizing it is a different thing. So in the Bhagavad Gita, if we can talk about some of the places Krishna mentions those who have realized they're not the body, I'm thinking of one verse from the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in which Krishna describes a person who's in transcendental consciousness and who sees how everything's working but in the body's working like a machine, but that he's not part of it. Tell me which verse I'm thinking of. Pundits, those who are studying Bhagavad Gita deeply. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta sattvavit pashan shinvan sprishan jigran ashnan gachan supanshvasan pralapan vishwanan grinan unmishan nimishanapi indriyan indriyateshu vartanta iti dharayan. Does anybody have a Gita in here? I'll feel much better if I have a Gita nearby. Oh, thank you. Naiva kinchit. So kinchit means something. And na eva means, which becomes naiva, means he doesn't think he's doing anything. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukta manyeta tattvavit. A person who is tattvavit, he's seen the truth, realizes that I'm not doing anything. You don't have to give them to everybody. It may be unwieldy. But is thinking that is noticing that all the activities of the body are going on. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto man yeta tatvavit pashyan shrinvan sprishan jigran ashnan gachan supanshasan. So he's mentioning here seeing, breathing, moving about, accepting, giving things, evacuating. All these bodily activities are going on, but he's noticing that it's separate from me. I'm not doing anything at all. The verse number, Damodar? 5, 8, and 9. How many of you would like to hear this verse? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you didn't raise your hand, cover your ears. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness is pure in his existence, and consequently has nothing to do with any work which depends upon 5 immediate and remote causes: the doer, the work, the situation, the endeavor, and fortune. This is because he is engaged in the loving transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, he is always conscious of his actual position, which is spiritual engagement. What's he always conscious of? Yeah. In material consciousness, the senses are engaged in sense gratification, but in Krishna consciousness, the senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is always free, even though he appears to be engaged in affairs of the senses. Activities such as seeing and hearing are actions of the senses meant for receiving knowledge, whereas moving, speaking, evacuating, etc. are actions of the senses meant for work. A Krishna conscious person is never affected by the actions of the senses. He cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord, because he knows that he is the eternal servitor of the Lord. So this is very... This verse is indicative of the definition of bhakti, actually. That the devotee's actively using his or her senses in service. There's a couple of verses that define devotional service, or the process of bhakti, which are found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So one of them says, Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karmanyanavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktirutama. So in this verse, the author, Rupa Goswami, is given the definition of devotional service, and he says that it is a cultivation or an activity using the senses, both in the internal sense of the mind and all the external senses, in the favorable service of Krishna. And that it's freed from any desire for fruit of activity. You don't want anything returned. And also, you're not desiring liberation. You're only doing it for Krishna's satisfaction. So this is an active way in which the devotees are engaged, but at the same time, because they're not concerned with getting something in return, they're detached from the activities. They're only doing it as a service to please Krishna. In the other verse that Rupa Goswami quotes from the Narada Pancharatra, Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam Tatpratena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. So this verse says that while you're engaging your senses in Krishna's service, the senses become purified. They come to their original purified state just by engaging them in Krishna's service. And an example that Prabhupada frequently gives is if you take an iron rod and you place the rod in fire, and you leave it in the fire long enough, then it transforms. It's no longer metal, it's no longer iron, but it becomes fire. It transforms into fire and becomes fire-like. And so similarly, when we engage our senses in Krishna's service, then the senses become transcendentalized. And only by these transcendentalized senses that are transformed can one then begin to perceive Krishna. Who can give me a verse from the Shastra which says something similar? That by engaging the senses in Krishna's service, then one can come to understand Krishna. I'll give you a hint of the one I'm thinking of. There are many, but the one I'm thinking of specifically says that the first sense that you have to engage in Krishna's service, and this you may find as good news, and that is the tongue. Which verse says that? Who's saying what? Go ahead. Pundits, speak out. Yes. Swayameva, but how does it start? Atha Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhavet Grahimindre Seva Mukhi Jivado Swayameva Spratyada. Aprame, why is this good news?
I don't really know the translation.
Okay. It says that you can't understand Krishna by your blunt material senses. But if you engage in yoga, beginning with the tongue, then Krishna will reveal himself to you. Why is that good news, Aprame? You have a helper here. Go ahead. Why is it good news? Man after my own heart. Yes, because you can eat Krishna Prasadam. We honor Krishna Prasadam. For instance, somebody gives you Charnamrita. When I'm back at ISV, we have this little Charnamrita bowl. And you can take a little Charnamrita, you're engaging the tongue. You take a little sip of Charnamrita, you feel satisfied. It's water that washed Krishna's lotus feet, right? And then also, what other kind of prasadam can you take? Yes. Tulsi prasadam, yes. What other kind of prasadam can you take? Give him the mic, this is important. We want to hear about prasadam. Yes?
Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada. 4 kinds of footsteps.
Well, where does this verse come from? Don't answer. Where's the verse from? Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada. From the Guru Vashtakam. There's Guru Vandanam is the Shri Guru Charana Padma. Guru Vashtaka means starting with Saradava, and this is the 4th verse in, right? So it says Chatur Vidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada. Go ahead.
Swad Anna Tripta Hari Bhakta Sangha Kirtveva Triptim Bhajata Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravindam. So there are four kinds of foodstuffs. One which can be chewed, another which can be licked, third which can be
Drunk. Sucked and drunk.
Sucked and drunk. Yes.
What is the kind of prasadam that you lick? Kulfi. Kulfi prasadam definitely was a licking experience we had today. Kulfi. Okay. What's the kind of prasadam that you drink? For 10 points, huh? Charnamrita you can drink. Yeah, what other kind of thing? Lots of
Varuni.
Varuni beverage. Anything else you can drink? Mango lassi. Water offered to Krishna. And you can think of Krishna when you drink water, yes? There's a lot of things you can drink. And okay, so chewed. What kind of prasadam can you chew? Yes? Rice and dal you can chew. Japatis. And what about sucked? Tulsi, okay. Mango you can suck. The fruits, all kinds of fruits you can suck. So the tongue likes to do these things. It's going to do it anyway. So the fact is that when you have prasad, you can take prasad. Atashi Krishnamadi Nabhavet Grayamindriya Sevon Mukhi Hijivado. Chihwa means the tongue. And Ado means you start that way. And you engage the tongue in Krishna's service. Do you like prasad? What's his name? Jagannath. You like prasad? Do you take prasad? Say yes.
No dinner for it.
So this is engaging the tongue in Krishna's service. So by this process of engaging the senses in Krishna's service, as Prabhupada's mentioning here in his purport, then the senses become purified and they become transcendentalized. And through that process of yoga, one begins to realize that one is not the body. So there's also a mention of how a person realizes that he or she is not the mind. Where might you find that in the Bhagavad Gita? A person who's noticing that the mind is going on, but I'm separate from the mind. Anything? Well, I'm thinking a couple places. If you can know how to do an ESP, you can tell what I'm thinking. Okay, from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks Krishna a question. What question does he ask in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? This is my group of pundits over here. I'm going to be referring to you regularly, so be on call. Are you ready? What question does Arjuna ask Krishna in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? For 20 points. That's a lot. That means you'll win 20 beyond birth and deaths if you answer this question. We're going to deal, our whole currency here is going to be beyond birth and death from now. Trading and using that for our currency. What? Ask a friend. Okay? Tell us. What question does he ask? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead. How does what? That comes up in the first chapter. Okay, second chapter, yes? He wants to know what? Say it in English.
How does a person of fixed?
Yeah, what is the symptom of somebody who's self-realized? Stita prajna. He's fixed in consciousness, is translated self-realized person. He knows he's not his body. This is one of the symptoms, right? So, does Krishna answer? Does he give an answer? Did you hear what the question was? Arjuna wants to know, what does a person who's self-realized look like? What is his symptoms, right? So the first thing that Krishna says about a self-realized person is prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyeva manatushta stita pragnasta dochite. So he said a self-realized person is one who gives up all the mental concoctions that come from the mind. So this verse says manogatan, which means the mind goes. Where does it go? Just about everywhere. It keeps spinning and running. It's like a factory. It keeps putting out desires and it keeps putting out ideas for sense enjoyment. So the person who is self-realized, this is a person who's actually realized I'm not the body, says that he knows that these are not me. They're simply coming from the mind. They're being manufactured and therefore he gives it up. Prajahati yada kaman. These are material desires. Sarvan partha manogatan. All the things that are manufactured in the mind for desiring to enjoy the material world, he detaches himself from those. And then he says, Atmanyevatmana tushta, but he finds satisfaction in the self. Stita pragnas tadochite. This person is called fixed in consciousness. So this is parallel with our first paragraph of this book, in which Prabhupada says a person has to realize he's not his body. So there's a way in which a person realizes that I'm not the mind. And there's another verse I'm thinking of that's at the end of the second chapter of the Gita, in which Krishna gives a metaphor. And he compares the self-realized person to a particular natural body that you might find if you drove, let's say, to Pacifica. That's right. That's another metaphor, and it's very good, but I'm thinking of the ocean. So, apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tavat kama pravishanti sarve prashantiya sarvanakama kami. He says that a self-realized person is just like the ocean And so how is a self-realized person like the ocean? Prabhu, you say. Give him the microphone. In this verse, right behind you. Yes. Shankarananda.
Just
Why
like,
is a self-realized person, Krishna say, like the ocean?
just like the many flowing rivers constantly pour water in the ocean, but the ocean never swells up.
That's right. And so what's coming into, why is the self-realized person like an ocean?
Only the desires may flow in his mind, but he doesn't try to satisfy them, but remains uneducated like an ocean.
That's right. He's not changed by them. He sees that they're coming in, but he sees they're not me. They're coming into my mental system, but I'm not attached to them at all. And he doesn't react. It's very similar to the first verse I quoted, isn't it? Prajahati yada kaman. So there are practical descriptions throughout the Bhagavad Gita of a person who is factually self-realized, who sees that I'm not my body. One of them describes how the person, I said the first one, naiva kinchit karomiti, the person is observing how the body is going on mechanically. Have you ever noticed that? Did you all eat lunch? Are you digesting right now? Did you know you were digesting till I just said this? Or do you know how you're digesting? Do you know where the nutrients are going? Where? The bloodstream. Are you controlling that process? No, you're not. So you may have an objective view from studying the process of digestion, but we have no idea how these things are going on. Similarly, I have no idea how my dishwasher works at home. All I know is that we put dishes in, a little soap, and we push a button and close the door, and it works. And it goes on. And that's about all I know about this body also. I eat something and I just wait, and later on it's digested. And so we can observe that we're not our body. That actually the body is going on, there are mechanical features, gross mechanical features, and there are subtle mechanical features just like software. And there's a lot of software experts here, I imagine. And you notice that there's a code behind each thing that makes it run. So the mind runs with similar kind of precision, with similar kind of programming. It's software. But a self-realized person realizes his or her identity beyond the gross and subtle material body. And this realization means that proof of the realization, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. What is the proof that somebody's self-realized? And that is detached from the body. Proof positive. Krishna says that the person is no longer interested in sense gratification because he realizes it has nothing to do with me. So one can judge one's own level of self-realization by these symptoms that Krishna is talking about in the Bhagavad Gita. And also the overall symptom of seeing how much I'm engaged in sense gratification or how much I'm eager for sense gratification. So now I'm going to read the first paragraph again and then take your reflections, okay? Are you ready?
Yes.
Two people are ready? Yes. Okay. The very first step in self-realization is realizing one's identity as separate from the body. I am not this body, but am spirit soul is an essential realization for anyone who wants to transcend death and enter into the spiritual world beyond. It is not simply a matter of saying, I am not this body, but of actually realizing it. This is not as simple as it may seem at first. Although we are not these bodies, but are pure consciousness, somehow or other we have become encased within the bodily dress. If we actually want the happiness and independence that transcend death, we have to establish ourselves and remain in our constitutional position as pure consciousness. What did you get out of that? Which parts did you hear that struck you and that you can reflect back?
Transcending the body, I mean, we are...
Use the mic. You got to hold it right in front of you.
You need to transcend the body.
We still can't hear you. Because there's people listening online and they can't hear you. Sorry.
You need to transcend the body.
Technical help.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
And, yeah. You have to transcend the body, and it is only at that time. I'm sorry, I lost the chain of thoughts.
Sorry, it's my fault.
No. We have, I'll come back.
Okay, good, but you're onto something, definitely onto something. What else did you hear? Over on this side of the room, what did you hear?
So we constantly try to think that we are not this body, but still it's very difficult for us to come out of that.
Yeah?
It's still very difficult for us to come out and be able to apply it every day in everything that we do.
Okay, that's sort of a summarization of what was said here. Prabhupada said it's not so easy, right? It's not as simple as it may seem at first, he said. Did that make you feel better? I mean, you could say you're not the body, and this is a basic premise, and then it's like, well, maybe I don't realize that all the time. But Prabhupada said it's not as simple as you may think. Probably makes us feel better, right? Okay, very good. And you remembered?
Yeah.
Yes.
True happiness depends upon the liberation from the bodily consciousness into that of spirit consciousness.
Can you prove that with Shastra?
Yeah, there must be quite a few. Because when you
Give me
walk-
one from the Bhagavad Gita. I'm thinking of one now, and I know you know the verse, but 18th chapter.
18th.
Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nashochati Nakangshati Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. So this verse says that the Brahma Bhuta, or the spiritual platform, which really means that I'm realizing that I'm not the gross or subtle material body. I'm not identifying anymore with the mind, which is constantly going on and concocting all kinds of ideas for sense gratification. And I'm actually enjoying the pleasure of the self. Atman yevatmana tushta, which is the verse we said earlier. So then Krishna describes the symptoms of this experience. As he said, you have to realize it. So he says, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. What's the first symptom of somebody who's realizing that I am not the body, that I'm spiritual soul? That I just said. Prasanatma means?
Happiness.
Joyful.
Joyful.
Joyful because of what? For no reason at all. There's no reason you're happy. And somebody didn't call you and say you won $1 million. You're just happy because that's the nature of the self. The self unfettered by Maya. When I'm encaged in a body and I identify myself as the body, I have all kinds of anxieties. For instance, there's many cars here today in the parking lot, right? How many of them are your car? How many have a car in the parking lot? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so did anybody park right out here? 1, 2. So let's say we hear somebody come around the corner and really fast in one of those big monster trucks, and we hear one of the cars get hit. Did you say it was yours?
Yes.
Okay, so we hear your car get hit, and how does he feel? Bad. He starts to perspire, jumps up, runs to the window, and it turns out it wasn't his car. It was his car. Now how does he feel? Good. Now how do you feel? Of course, you're self-realized, but just go along with this. Act like an ordinary person. You would feel bad. Right, exactly, bad. Yeah, so now a car is a car. It's made out of sheet metal and glass and rubber and everything like that. What's the difference between a car and your car? Yeah, that's it. It's because I identify with it. Aprame?
We invested our consciousness.
You invested your consciousness. You projected yourself into it. A car is just a car. There's millions of them that are getting hit right now all over America, I guarantee you. And we're not concerned about them at all. Why? They're not my car. So there's lots of stuff in the world, but some of it's my stuff. That's the kind of the stuff that I'm worried about. Why is it my stuff? It's just stuff. It comes and goes. I was with my mother when she was passing away. And she had 4 days, and I got to sit with her during. And I remember the moment she left, and I looked around at her house. She was in her home when she left, and I thought, oh, all this stuff she collected. There was all kinds of art and books and things like that, and I just thought you just left it behind, just passed on. Now there's no more connection to it all. There's no more my stuff. It all got divided up, sold, distributed to one sibling or another, and it moved on to somebody else. And the Bhagavatam says, people think this is my money. Anybody ever think that? My money? It's my money? Yeah, so fifth canto of the Bhagavatam is description that Prashant, he says, this is my money, and then a thief comes along and steals Prashant's money. And now it becomes Dhirodatta's money. Dhirodatta's the one who stole it. And he thinks now it's my money. And then Janardhan comes along and he steals the money from Dhirodatta. Now whose money is it? Incorrect. It's Narayan's money. It belongs to Narayan the whole time. Everyone's just taking it from another person, or they pass it on by some exchange and they think now it's my money, but you can't keep it. And it just passes from one to the next, and similarly with cars and houses and bodies. So I say this is my body, but it's not your body, it's just a loan. Did you sign a lease? Do you remember as a baby? Did they give you a tiny little pen when you were a baby? Did they put a footprint, put your little foot in ink and you put it on the lease? You say you get this many years to use this body? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
No more ink on your foot? You didn't get a lease? It can be taken back at any second. There's no guarantee. It's not my body. It's not my car. It's not my money. So a self-realized person has an awareness of this, that all these things, they're simply temporarily within my possession. And they belong to the Supreme. They're not mine at all. So this is described in the Sri Upanishad. Ishavasyam yatkincha tena tyaktena magridha. Correct. Very good. So this says that everything animate or inanimate is controlled and owned by the Lord within the universe, everything. And therefore one should accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as one's quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Exactly. So the Ishavasya spirit, Srila Prabhupada describes, applies to everything, animate, inanimate. It's an ironclad case. Nothing belongs to me. Everything belongs to Isha, the Supreme Controller. And I'm not the Supreme Controller. So, Tena Tyaktena, you get to use these things. Whatever things are set aside as your quota. And it'll be pretty obvious what's given to you. You shouldn't try to get more, and you shouldn't try to live on less. Just take what's given to you as your quota, and consider that everything I have belongs to Isha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then you'll feel satisfaction. So there's a very solid proof within the Gita about the state of self-realization, or their very distinctive symptoms. So the first one is prasanatma. So when a person comes to the stage of realizing that nothing belongs to me, there's a great relief. Because actually, carrying around all the things that I think are mine is a great burden. A bottom. It means a great burden I'm carrying around. I think that everything's mine, my body's mine, and what might be the problem with that? If I consider this body as mine.
Attachment.
Yeah, attachment to the body, what kind of psychological problem might it cause for me if I think I am this body, it belongs to me?
Anxiety.
What might happen?
Worrying about leaving it.
Worrying about leaving it at any time, right? Yeah, and what did you say?
Anxiety.
What kind of anxiety? Be more specific. What's the source of your anxiety when you think you're the body? Maybe it's got an extra few pounds on it, and you think like, oh no. And maybe, anything can happen to the body. I wish I looked like somebody else. That constant anxiety of the body. And then there's all kinds of diseases that come into the body, right? Name some that start with A.
Arthritis.
Asthma, arthritis, Alzheimer's, 3 more. AIDS. Huh? Gray hair. That doesn't start with it. Okay, name 3 that start with B. Bronchitis.
Blood pressure.
Bulimia.
Blood pressure, bulimia. You could go on all day through the whole alphabet. There's enough anxiety within this body because you just name them all and you'll find out the body. This is what Prahlad Maharaj says. He says, Kutra Shisha Shruti Sukham Mrigatrishni Rupa. He says the happiness, you'll never find it. And then in the next line of his statement, he says, the body is just a breeding place for diseases. It's like a petri dish. Do you do this? Madhava, do you have labs in your school? They give you a petri dish? Huh? Homeschool? Don't they give you a petri dish at home? In biology class, they give you a petri dish, right? Come on, everyone knows this. You get a petri dish, Madhva, listen, they get a petri dish, and in it you put some culture, like some bacteria, and then you let it, so it's a medium through which, bacterium can grow, right? And then you come back the next day and you go, oh, look, it grew. And so Prahlad's saying this body is like a petri dish for diseases. It's just a place where disease grows. So you can expect that there's going to be a lot of anxiety that comes through identifying with the body, right? So when you come to this clear understanding that I'm not the body, it's a huge relief. And there's also a sense of realizing oneself that I have nothing to do with this material world. I am an eternal spirit soul, and that's experience prasannatma. One becomes immediately joyful. And then the next symptom, nashochati nakangshati, no more hankering, no more lamentation. I don't need anything else because I already realize that what I am is so fulfilling, just being what I am. I'm an eternal spiritual being related to Krishna. So I don't need anything else. I don't have to go to the mall to get some other thing. Nashochati nakangshati, I don't lament, I don't hanker, and I also see all other living entities as spiritual beings too. At the same time, I realize how they have their spiritual identity. So there's a lot in this first paragraph that's very important. It's a whole study. And coming to the point of realizing oneself as not the body is something that Krishna also talks about in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says that if you go on practicing bhakti yoga properly, then you will gain certain assets. What assets do you gain by practicing bhakti yoga? We'd probably want to know this since this is what we're practicing, right? Benefits-based marketing. What benefits do you get, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, from practicing bhakti? Say it. Give him the mic. Okay, we need a tech team to fix that. Fix it. Okay, go ahead. There he goes.
Amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, shantirarjavam. So these are just some of them.
Okay, amanitvam, adambitvam. So this comes in the 13th chapter of the Gita, right? 8th verse. And Krishna's describing the 20-fold path of knowledge. And he starts by saying, amanitvam, adambitvam means humility and pridelessness. Amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, shantirarjavam. So ahimsa means nonviolence. And shantir means, yes, peace, and it also means that one's forgiving. Shantir arjavam, and simplicity. And he names 20 different items that lead one to perfect knowledge. So this is a path of knowledge. And what is the result when one follows the path of knowledge? What does one get from bhakti? What are some of the assets that one gains if one's practicing the path of bhakti? Pundits? Yes?
Krishna provides what they lack, and
Very good. Very good, yes.
Yeah.
So this verse comes in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paripasate tesham nityaviyuktanam yogakshemam bahamyaham. If someone engages their mind completely in me, this is what it means. Ananyas. Ananya means without anything else. There's no other consideration. That I'm dedicating my consciousness to Krishna in devotional service. Ananyas chintayanto mam. Chintaya means the consciousness, and mam means in me, Krishna. Yejana paripasate, and his only concern is worshipping Krishna. Teshab nityad yuktanam is always engaged like that. Yoga kshemam bahamyaham. That person, such a person, I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. That means Krishna is attentive to every living entity. In fact, Gajendra mentions this in his prayers, right? You know Gajendra Mokshana? Prabhuji? Or Pandit here? Gajendra Mokshana. Gajendra's prayers, yes. In his prayers, Gajendra says, my Lord, you're never inattentive. For every living entity, you're always there. In fact, it's not that he's only attentive when we pray to him or we call out to him. He's attentive even before that. He's watching every living entity very carefully to see what the desire of the soul is. But when someone deliberately turns their attention towards Krishna and makes this determination that I'm going to surrender to Krishna, even though I'm not very good at it, even though I'm very fallen, I'm going to try, and I'm going to do this. I'm surrendering. Then Krishna says, when a person turns their attention towards me, and they're ananyash, they have no other desire, then Krishna says, I'll carry what you lack and preserve what you have. Yes?
And Gajendra, in such a mood, Gajendra is remembering a prayer that he learned in a previous life. He is so focused on Krishna that as an elephant, he's remembering a prayer from a previous life.
So this is another asset. In the 6th chapter of the Gita, Krishna says that whatever progress you make is never lost. And so she's giving this excellent example of Gajendra. He was a king in his previous life named Indradyumna. And as a king, Indradyumna, he was performing some austerities and doing meditation. Do you all do that? You spend time in the forest? Meditation? Block out everything else? King Indradyumna was doing this. And then along came a sage. And the sage came to the place where he was meditating. And Indradyumna was in such samadhi that he didn't look up and he didn't attend to the sage. So the sage cursed him. He says, okay, you didn't follow etiquette. I'm a Brahmin, you're a Kshatriya. I curse you. In your next life, you might as well become an elephant because you're so dumb. So in his next life, Indradyumna became a what? A cow. Cow? A cat? Good. Okay, elephant. Became an elephant. So became an elephant in his next life, and he remembered his previous prayers when he was in trouble. He got caught by an alligator on the leg, and he couldn't shake it. So then he had no other recourse except to call out to God. And as an elephant, he didn't quite remember exactly who God was, but because of his contribution to devotional service in the previous life, he had practiced saying these prayers, and now he remembered them in the next life. So this is an asset that one gains. Whatever practice you do in this life, you won't lose. In your next life, you'll take it up again. And Krishna says, Purva Samskara. You'll get the remembrance of your previous practice. In this life, it'll just come to you. It's like we notice that some people, when we meet them, we introduce Krishna consciousness to them, they suddenly take to it. They say, oh yeah, I remember, I did this before. Now it's time to take it up again. So that's another asset. What's another asset you get from practicing bhakti? Like let's say practicing bhakti means shravanam kirtanam, hearing and chanting, direct processes of devotional service. What do you get according to the scriptures? You want to know what you get, right? Mayapur was about to say. Aprameya's got something. Yes, Prabhu?
Akamaha sarva kamo va moksha kama udarati.
You better give him the mic. This is profound what he's saying. He's quoting Bhagavatam here. We all want to hear this, and so does everybody online. When somebody starts quoting Bhagavatam, you stop your car, you turn off everything, and you listen, right? Let's hear it.
Akamaha sarva kamo va moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param.
And okay, so tell us what we get. What does that mean? And what do you mean that by quoting that verse? What we get from bhakti?
Akama, whether you have no desires. Sarva kamova, you have all kinds of desires.
Yes.
Or your goal is moksha. Just engage in devotional service, the service to the Lord Krishna with intensity.
Yes, very good. So this is an imperative. It's saying, doesn't matter what position you're in right now, you should engage in bhakti. And it doesn't matter what you want. You might want liberation, you might want some material benefit, you might be a pure devotee, whatever it is. Still approach Krishna, because by approaching Krishna, you'll become purified and you'll come to the perfect stage. But yes?
So pretty much anything you can get.
You can get anything. Aha, very good. He could have been an attorney. He turned that one right around on us. Okay, very good. I like your point. Very good. Yes?
So this one, Bhagavad Gita, ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyas matpara ananyene yogena mam dhyayanta pasate tesham aham samudarta mrityu samsara sagara bhavami na chirat partha maya veshita chetasam. So the translation, but those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pritha. For them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death.
So what do we get?
Delivery from the ocean of
Krishna
birth.
comes, gets you personally. If you dedicate yourself and you say, Krishna, I'm yours, I surrender to you. And I'm helpless, I'm drowning here in the material world, Krishna will come pick you up. In fact, there's a picture of that in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna's coming down on Garuda, and he's reaching down, conditioned souls there, drowning in the ocean, and he's lifting up, and Krishna picks them up and he takes them back to Godhead. That's a big deal. You want to have Krishna come and pick you up. So if you engage in devotional service, Krishna will come get you. Very good asset. Who's keeping track of all these? You are our pundits writing these all down? No? Okay. Radhavenkat Prabhu, are you writing it down? Very good. Okay, let's name a couple more. What benefits do you get from practicing the direct process of bhakti? Yes?
This is a verse from Bhagavad Gita, like the most famous
We'll
verse.
take it.
Sarva dharma parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja.
Say it with feeling.
Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshishyami masacha. And basically the verse says that just surrender unto Krishna and do not fear, he'll take away all your sins.
And Krishna's saying it personally, isn't he? He's saying, just surrender unto me, I'll deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear, do not worry, do not hesitate. If a man comes in here tonight, sits over at that table, got a briefcase, puts up a sign, says, you come over here, sign up, I'll take care of all your affairs. I'll take care of all your problems, I'll wipe out all your debt. Anything that's troubling you, I'll take care of it. You line up? Come on, say yes. But you might be thinking, who is this guy? Can he really do this? But if Krishna says it, you study who Krishna is. He's the Supreme Personality of God. It's the same thing. He's saying the same thing. He's walked in, he's set up a little booth over there, and he said, listen, you line up right here. Here's the little chit. There's a box on it. He says, I surrender. I'll take care of everything else. You don't worry. You don't hesitate. You just come over here. Who's going to sign up? Raise your hands now. It's your chance. Yes, exactly. You immediately raise your hand. And this verse, you can miss it. Everyone's like, sarva dharman parityaja. Prabhupada says, sometimes sadhus live by the Ganga. And then they think, it's just the Ganga. I'll go take bath somewhere else. But you can't miss this verse. You can read it over and over and over and over again. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I'll take care of you completely. I'll manage all your affairs. I'll take all your debt. Whatever debt you have from being in the material world for millions of lifetimes, I'll take it all over and abolish it all if you just surrender unto me. Yes?
Actually, Krishna makes very clear that every time he is coming is to deliver his devotees. When he says Paritpranaya Sadhunam, and using activities of Krishna, devotees are always tushta and they are always in transcendental bliss. So surrendering to Krishna, those two, satisfaction, self-satisfaction and always in bliss, comes automatically. And these are two very important attributes of a devotee. So when a devotee is satisfied and is happy, then sitokshana sukha dukkheshu yata manava, anything which comes up, he starts getting, there's more positive than the negatives around. So always on a positive side.
Okay. You're saying devotees are not as susceptible to the changes of the material world, the distresses and so forth, because they're taking shelter of Krishna. This is a great benefit. I see you, Aprame, but I'm just looking, I'm surveying over here. Any more? Okay, Aprame, go ahead. He's on a roll.
Hare Krishna. This is from Chaturshloki Gita. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite.
Yes.
So if you just surrender unto Krishna and completely dedicate yourself to him, he'll give you all knowledge to come towards him.
He gives you intelligence, how to come to him. So, Tesham satata yuktanam. So somebody who's constantly engaging in service to Krishna, that's what all of you are doing, right? Are you constantly engaging in Krishna service? Say yes. Yes. So let me just give an explanation of that, because this is in the Shastra and it's very helpful, especially to all of us we have complicated lives, yes or no? Yes. Thank you. So there are many things that we have to do other than direct devotional service, yes or no? Yes. Okay, so in the Shastra, it is very specifically said, and where is it? It's in the Nectar Devotion Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It is said, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. That means you should always be serving Krishna. What does Nityam mean? Say always. Constantly. Without stoppage. 24 hours a day. But Jiva Goswami says, if you tell that to neophytes, they'll become very discouraged. Because they say, I can't do that. Even if I don't have anything else to do, I still can't do it. These are some of the symptoms that one has before one comes to the states of Nishta, that it's very difficult to do 24-hour devotional service. Therefore, he says, what it means for us is that at least you do it every day, something every day. You do your practice, your basic practice every day. This also means nityam. You don't miss a day, right? Say yes, no missing. So every day, what can you do every day that counts as direct devotional service? What's possible? Yes? Chanting what? The Mahamantra, yes. You can chant the Mahamantra every day. This is an authorized activity, correct? Yes. Okay, and what else? You can read Srila Prabhupada's books. Which book would you like to read? Every day? Okay, you could read Srimad Bhagavatam every day, and this would be counted, as a matter of fact, these two that you've mentioned, as you know well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said there are 64 activities of devotional service. And out of all of them, he said 5 are particularly important and potent out of the 5. And you've named 2 of them just now. Chanting Hare Krishna and reading Srimad Bhagavatam, correct? Yes. Spreading the Mahamantra. That's definitely a direct process of devotional service, recommended by Mahaprabhu. It's counted as kirtan. We have Shravanam, Kirtanam, right? It's the second. Yes?
Hearing, what you're doing right now.
Hearing. Yes, hearing. Shravanam, Kirtanam. Shravanam means hearing, yes?
Living in Mathura.
Living in Mathura. And if you can't afford a ticket to Mathura, or somehow or other you can't get to Mathura, what do you do then?
Simply chant all the time and your body becomes...
Chant all the time, but Mahaprabhu said something specific. If you can't live in Mathura physically, then you should live there in your mind. You should live there in your mind. So he said it may not be possible to go to Mathura or live in Mathura, but you should live there within your mind. Yes?
I have 2. One is eating prasadam.
Yes?
The other one is
The Briyat Madanga. Yes, distributing books. So there are many, yes?
And deity worship.
And deity worship. These are things that you can do every day. You can read Bhagavad Gita every day, correct?
Yes.
Who can stop you? Nobody? And I mean, if you were in other countries, you might feel a little bit nervous about reading Bhagavad Gita, right? Are there other countries where you might be punished for reading Bhagavad Gita?
China.
Possibly China, Russia. Also, they're trying to restrict Bhagavad Gita. Are they doing it in America?
No.
Anything in Sacramento? Any police going around checking and see if you're reading Bhagavad Gita? Any law in the Constitution that says can't read Bhagavad Gita?
Not yet.
So it's possible to read Bhagavad Gita every day, right?
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so you could read Bhagavad Gita every day. This would be a direct process. You could chant Hare Krishna every day. So if you take to these regular and direct activities of bhakti and you practice them every day, then let's hear the benefits that we get. Did you line them up?
Yes.
Give them the mic. This is important. Here's what you won.
1866, Sarvodharman Parityaja.
Okay, don't name the verses. Just tell us in English the basic benefits that we get from practicing direct devotional service. Distilled essence.
I wrote the verses down. I didn't write the summary down.
Okay, say the verse. We'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, 1866 was one.
1866, you get all your debts taken away. No more karma. Krishna will take away all your karma, and he will deliver you. And you don't have to worry. He'll take care of all your affairs. That's the first benefit. Is that a good benefit?
Yes.
Say yes. Okay, what else?
4.8, which is similar to that, which is Paritrana Sadhana, where Krishna says, I'll deliver you.
Okay, next.
9.22, Ananyas Chantayanto Mam.
Okay, if you remember, Krishna carries what you lack and preserves what you have. What else?
2.3.10, which is Akama Sarva Kamova.
You get everything. By remembering approaching Krishna.
The next one was 12.6.7, which is we are drowning and
Krishna will come save you from the ocean. He'll personally take you out of the ocean of material existence. What else do you get?
that's what I have. 5 of them.
Okay, yes, you've got other benefits.
I think the biggest thing is Krishna becomes bounded by you as a devotee. So like given the example like Arjun and Krishna agreed to become charioteer.
So the greatest benefit he's saying that Krishna becomes bound in love. That because you're practicing devotional service. Where does it say that in the Bhagavatam? Yes, who said that? Oh, give us the verse. Okay, well, first of all, in the second verse of the Bhagavatam, which you all know, Dharma projita kaitavo traparamo nirmatsaranam satyam vejam vasavam atra shivanam tapantrayamulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parayarishvara Sadyo Hridyavarudyate Trakritibi Shushushubis Takshanat. You all know this, right? You should memorize these verses. So this verse says, Sadyo Hridyavarudyate. If you listen to Bhagavatam, then Krishna won't leave your heart. And Prabhupada said he becomes packed up in your heart. He won't leave. Because when you're engaging in this hearing chanting of Bhagavatam or chanting Hare Krishna, then Krishna says, I want to stay in this person's heart. And he becomes bound in that person's heart by ropes of love, says the Bhagavatam. Sadyo hridyavarutyate trakriti bishu shushubish takshanat, just by hearing. What else? Yes.
There is one thing about Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Prashpavijnana.
Yes.
Even if you falter, he leaves you.
So we named that one, but we didn't get it written down, that if you practice devotional service, but then somehow or other you fall down, you give it up, you suddenly die, you take it up in your next life. You get forward progress. It's all counted, so that's a great benefit also. Do you get that in your job?
No.
If you go to your job one day and they're standing there with a security guard and says, get all your stuff, you got 5 minutes to get out. Do they give you forward progress? They'll give you maybe a little package that lasts for 3 months and then they'll forget all about you. But Krishna never forgets. In fact, Lord Ramachandra says that if one time I hear somebody say, I surrender it to you, he said from that day forward and eternally after that, that person becomes my ward and I will take care of him forever. That one time person says, I surrender to you. Now we're going to take a couple of reflections. Anything that you heard so far in the class that stuck in your mind? Apramay, in the hot seat.
It was about the comment that you said about where if you surround yourself with Srimad Bhagavatam and other hearing and chanting, Krishna becomes packed inside your heart and he's not able to escape. I remember a story, it was about a devotee around 500 years ago. He was a tax collector, and because he was taking too much tax, he was put into jail. And for like 6, I think close to 8 months, he would compose beautiful songs of Lord Ram every single day. And eventually, he started wondering, why am I not being released from prison? And up in the spiritual world, Lord Ram kept listening, and he actually loved those songs so much. He didn't want to take the devotee out of prison because the devotee might have stopped. And so one day Sita Mata finally saw that the devotee was still in prison. And so she asked Lord Ram, why didn't you take him out of prison yet? And he said, I don't have the money. And and Sita Mata finally gave him like 2 bags full of gold that would never get emptied. And they eventually went back to save the devotee. But the moral of the story is that when you surrender yourself to Krishna and you keep praising him and glorifying him, he eventually gets engulfed inside it.
That story is by the poet's name is Bhadrachala Ramadas from Andhra Pradesh.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. A reflection, anything that you heard so far that stuck with you that you're taking away? Mayapur. Question.
So in the earlier part of your session, you mentioned sense gratification, and progress of one is lack of interest in sense gratification. Sometimes it is observed, at least in my case, in spite of knowing so many things and hearing the instructions, doing a lot of things, it seems as if sometimes based on the association, there is some lack of interest in sense gratification. Again it comes, again it goes. What is the reason for not able to progress in this field? Is it, as you said, knowing is one thing, but realizing is another. So, what is the reason that even in spite of spending so much time, the interest in sense gratification does not seem to decrease as much as it should be?
As much as it should be.
Or maybe completely.
Or completely, but it's because we've been in contact with matter since a time immemorial. And we've been practicing bhakti for a little while. And as Devahuti, who inquires from her exalted son, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that I've been in the material world since the time immemorial, and practically it seems that overcoming the mind and the senses and material desires is practically impossible. And what should I do? What is the solution? And Lord Kapila Dev says that you should hear about devotional service and about Krishna for a long time. And you should also engage in the practice of devotional service in various kinds of services, but especially you should hear for a long time. And he indicates a long time. So it's not a process that immediately it's immediately effective, but it takes some time for the influence of the modes of nature to dissipate. And as long as one is within a material body, there's always danger, so one has to be very careful. There are many descriptions in the Shastra. Krishna gives in a very simple way. In the Gita, he says that Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. As long as you're in the material body, you may take up the practice of devotional service, but the taste for sense objects may remain. So you're restraining yourself. But he says, once you get a higher taste, then it'll be natural that you give up the lower taste. And in a sort of more detailed way, in the Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about the progress that a devotee makes from the beginning to the end. So he describes the various stages, and you all know this. Adau Shraddha Tata Sarusangata Bhajana Kriya Tato Narta Nivriti Syat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tata. Then he goes on to describe the higher levels of bhakti. So it starts off with Shraddha. Adau Shraddha means in the beginning I have faith, and then I desire association with devotees, Tata Sarusanga, to Bhajana Kriya. And in the association of devotees then I become very serious, and I take a vow. I take vows. I take initiation. I say I'm making a vow to do this, and I start following the process very carefully. And then comes anartha nivritti, which means that I go through the process of purifying myself from these innate desires that have been there since the time immemorial. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the next stage that one comes to after this great battle between the mind and the senses and the practitioner of bhakti is called nishta. And this nishta means that you're no longer harassed by these material desires that you're describing. And then he mentions that there are 5 main obstacles to someone coming to the stage of nishta, or steadiness in devotional service. Would you like to hear what they are?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Dare I say them?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one is called laya. Laya means sleep. And laya means that while I'm doing my chanting or reading Bhagavatam, I feel sleepy. In fact, you can have a Bhagavatam class and everyone falls asleep. Why does that happen? It doesn't happen because I'm sleepy. You want me to prove it? You want me to prove it? Okay, say you're in Bhagavatam class, somebody's reading, and then you start feeling sleepy. How am I going to remain awake? And someone comes over and hands you a note and says, you just won $1 million. Do you wake up? Do you wake up?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're not sleepy. So sleep is a kind of contamination, and it's an obstacle. Laya, and then vishepa. Vishepa means that you become distracted. Are there any distractions in our environment these days? Yeah? Distraction free? Phones? Telephone? Emails? What else? Did I hear just a ding ding? Did somebody do that on purpose? Was that planned? Did I pay him to do that? Okay. So thank you. Appreciate it. I'll pay you later. Laya Vishepa, there's distraction. There's distraction all around me. So I'm chanting Hare Krishna, but my mind goes to something else. And I think, that's more important. I have to do this now. And it could be anything. It could be anything in my environment. And then apatipati means that one becomes indifferent. I'm not sleepy and there's no distraction, but I just don't care. And I just don't feel like it. It's right there for me, but I can't do it right now. I'm just not interested. And then there's rasasava, which means that I still have an innate taste for sense gratification. It's kind of in my senses. And Krishna describes this in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada says that the lust, kama, these desires, they take strategic places within the senses. So it could be hiding in any of the senses all the way up into the intelligence. And he says that you have to purify all of those strategic points, as I mentioned. And we talked about it in the very beginning, the senses have to become purified. But until I have that, I still have an innate, there's some kind of innate sense that I want to taste these things. Even as I'm becoming purified, it's still there a little bit. And it comes out sometimes. And then finally, the last of the obstacles, he said, are innate bad qualities like anger or greed or lust. And these kinds of things are still residing within the heart. They become obstructions. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, when these 5 are gone, then one comes to the point of nishta and one notices they're not there anymore. I'm not sleepy when I do my bhajan. When I chant or hear Bhagavatam, I'm not sleepy. I'm very interested. You can't induce me to sleep at that time. And I'm also not distracted. My mind is fully fixed on the subject matter. And I'm also not indifferent to my devotional service. I'm always on it. There's no gaps. And noticeably, the lower tastes, as I mentioned in the last 2 obstruction, which are very similar, they're gone. And this is described as one of the benefits of performing devotional service in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, Prabhupada noted himself these verses when he was on the Jaladuta coming to America. They're from the 1st canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter. And he starts with the verse that says, Shrinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyantakstohi bhadrani vidunati suritsatam. Which says, by hearing the Bhagavatam, then Krishna within the heart helps you to remove these obstacles that we're naming right now. And then he says, Nashtaprayashu Bhadrishu, you'll come to a state where these things, you'll notice that they're almost all gone, almost. And then, tada rajastamo bhava, at that time, when the lower modes of nature are completely destroyed, then you'll know. And your mind will become enlivened by contact with devotional service. And then, evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata. This verse goes on to say, your mind becomes extremely joyful because you're never disconnected from the process of bhakti. So it's a scientific process that requires a step-by-step engagement. And the more that we're attentive to following the process very carefully, especially hearing and chanting, following the four regulative principles, finishing the vow. In fact, this is something that we hear from Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. He said that the secret to advancing in devotional service is to finish your chanting vow every day, even at the cost of your own life. Take it so seriously. It's the most important thing to you. In fact, it's our first service to complete our chanting vow. If you take that as the most serious part of your whole day, that I finish my vow, and I do it with as much alacrity as possible, then you'll find that you'll advance in devotional service. So it's a scientific process. The signs are all there. It's as if a medical doctor, you can be your own doctor and analyze, how am I doing? You can see for yourself. And if you follow the process, Krishna says, Yeyata mam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanavartante manusha parta sarvasha. As somebody surrenders to me, I reward them accordingly. I reciprocate. So we have to continue. You're doing a great job, by the way. Just keep going. Last points. 5 minutes? Yes, Nirkula has a point. Or you're just signaling that wrap it up. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. It was very wonderful, and my realization or my reflection is that each verse is like a diamond, and when you collect it and connect the different verses, it looks like each verse is shining on another verse, and it's like infinite reflections on each other, and they're all very beautiful. And unfortunately, I look like a blind man sitting in the diamond store. It's so beautiful how you link the rivers.
Yeah, and this is what a Sangha is all about. This Sangha here in Sacramento, this is one thing that you can do, is set aside time to go through the books very carefully. And one activity that I recommend is sit in the room, make sure there's some Veda bases open, and also some books on the shelf. And then when you come to points, bring out other points and let the evidence verses come out and flow. And in the meantime, everyone can chant at least one chapter of Bhagavad Gita every day. Shankaranand, you still here? Did we chant one chapter of Bhagavad Gita on the way over here? Yes, we did. Which chapter? 18. And he said, we could have just drove over here, I could have looked out the window, but instead I opened my Bhagavad Gita app on my phone, available from the BBT, $4.99. I don't get any, but I really like it because it's a book app. It's right there all the time. I don't have to open the Veda base. And you can just open it up and chant your one chapter of Bhagavad Gita every day without fail. Will it change your life? Yes. If you just stick to that one thing, and you'll start, the verses will be flowing in your head. You'll know where they all are. And if you read a fixed number of pages every day, just make a vow to read a certain number of pages every day. Stick with a particular book and read your pages every day. There's an app on the App Store. It's good for iOS and also for, what's that other thing called?
Android.
Yeah, the Android. So there's Android and there's iOS, and it's built for both of them, and you can look it up. It's called Be a Sage, page by page. Someone got an App Store open? Look at there, download, it's free. And on there, you'll find a little picker wheel that you can turn, and it has all of Prabhupada's books, and it'll tell you how many pages to read each day to finish each one of Prabhupada's books within a given period of time. How long you want to take to read the Bhagavatam? 1 year? Okay, your target number is 41 pages. And if you sign into this app, it'll tell you 41 pages a day of Bhagavatam. That's what I do. So what I do like when I'm on the road, I carry my Bhagavatam with me, and because I like the book form, so I have a little marker in here that says 41 on it, and then when I start my day, I pull out my little marker like this, and then I go 41 pages forward, and then I mark it like that. I close the book, and nobody better bother me until I finish my pages. And I finish them first thing in the morning. I get my pages done before I go anywhere else, because I don't trust the world and the way it works, unless I'm fortified by my 41 pages. Can you do fewer pages if you want?
Yes.
Can you do more?
Yes.
Could you do 90 pages?
Yes.
Could anybody stop you?
No.
The police? No. Okay, nobody can stop you. So you can decide. Use your picker wheel and decide. And I have people nowadays calling me all the time, or they write me and they say, I can't believe it, I just finished the Bhagavatam. I can't believe it, I just finished the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and my life has changed forever. And if you finish the whole thing by following your pages every day, you'll be a new person, new life, you'll start all over again, you'll be your mind will be fully engaged in devotional service by hearing Prabhupada's purports and the verses of the Bhagavatam. It's an experience like no other. So these things you can do every day. Chant one chapter of Gita, and then when you come together, you can find times during festival where you spend some extensive time together like this. Maybe like on a day when you have the day off, and maybe spend, like 3 hours together like this. And just read, and then have somebody facilitate and pull out the books and read. Or you could do it in smaller groups, start a smaller group. So now we're going to end, because phones are starting to ring. And to finish, I'm just going to read the paragraph one more time so we can appreciate how much is this within one paragraph. Damodar Prabhu.
Prabhuji, based on your inspiration on book distribution, devotees at Sacramento has been going out on book distribution. Practically, the various groups of Sacramento have been unified by distribution of Srila Prabhupada's book. If you allow, we wanted to present you. Devotees went out today for book distribution and give you the scores for your pleasure.
Oh yes, please.
So, can we have devotees who went out today for book distribution, please stand up, just for 30 seconds. Prabhu?
Hey, look at them all.
Please stand up. In all, these devotees of Sacramento, following the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada and the guidance given by His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu, they have been going out doing book distribution. The groups have united in spirit of distributing books of Srila Prabhupada. First time in history where people are forgetting their differences and coming forward and uniting for spirit of distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books. We are very pleased to announce that in all today, these devotees went out for over 7 to 8 hours and have collected more than 1,023.63 cents. Let's give them a big round of... And they distributed over 100 Srila Prabhupada's book. They are preparing a MSF offering like traditionally we do, and hopefully tomorrow we will have a score of 1st of January till end of April. They have been doing consistently very well. ISKCON Sacramento devotees have been participating in the events by Team Yamuna Mai and vice versa. And book distribution is becoming the uniting force for bringing various groups together at ISKCON.
This is extremely powerful news and very pleasing to hear. Congratulations to the whole yatra. These two activities of coming together to distribute books and as a feeling of a service to Srila Prabhupada, to Lord Krishna, and to the world, and also doing it for self-purification and doing it in a cooperative spirit is the panacea. and then coming back and spending time together hearing and chanting with these two things together, that you'll develop a yatra which will be noted throughout the world. And I predict that this yatra, as it's growing now through the power of uniting through Srila Prabhupada's books distribution, hearing and chanting, having beautiful festivals like we had today, will grow and become extremely strong and powerful and noteworthy all over the world. Gaur Premanande Haribol.
We also wanted to just ask for devotees. Vaisesika Prabhu today called for $960,000 collection for books, and 200 copies of these books come in a case, and it costs around $80 for sponsorship. We are open for receiving donations so that people will go out and distribute these books.
I sponsor a case.
Hari Hari! Can someone note it down? Can you note it down? Okay. One from Vaisesika Prabhu. How many cases, Prabhu? One case is from Vijay Damodas Prabhu's son. I will sponsor 5 for ISKCON Sacramento. One case from Radha Venkat Prabhu. Many cases? One case from Gunanava Sitaram Prabhu. So anybody who would like, yes, Mayapur. One case from Mayapur Vihari Prabhu. Hare Krishna. How many cases, Prabhu? One case, what's your name?
Gokul.
Gokul Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Any more?
What was the second one? Vaisesika Prabhu?
Vijay Damodas Prabhu family. Yeah. So, the opportunities are still available, and can you tell Mataji how many bookcases we sponsored today? Yes, Prabhu. You want to? Okay, yeah. 9.
Oh, we have 11, those the other,
Okay, so 11 into 200 is how much? 2200 of Beyond Birth and Death is sponsored by devotees at ISKCON Sacramento. Thank you so much, and then there are more opportunities. Please help us to reach the goal of what Vaisesika Prabhu says. Every time that happens true. So please help in
pay right away.
Yes, Prabhu. One case more. Hare Krishna. The new
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu. One case from Prabhuji. Any more? We will connect, please connect Mataji after the program, and we will glad to take more. And this is not just here. Even Team Yamunamai can collect similar donations, and we will all distribute, flood the ISKCON Sacramento area around with these transcendental books. Now we can all get up, Prabhu, and then...
Yes, let me just read the paragraph one last time, and then we'll realize how profound every paragraph of Prabhupada's books is. Chapter 1, we are not these bodies. Dehi nityam avadyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitam arhasi. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. The very first step in self-realization is realizing one's identity as separate from the body. I am not this body, but am spirit soul. Is an essential realization for anyone who wants to transcend death and enter into the spiritual world beyond. It is not simply a matter of saying, I am not this body, but of actually realizing it. This is not as simple as it may seem at first. Although we are not these bodies, but are pure consciousness, somehow or other, we have become encased within the bodily dress. If we actually want the happiness and independence that transcend death, we have to establish ourselves and remain in our constitutional position of pure consciousness. I rest my case. And this particular book, Beyond Birth and Death, all of Prabhupada's books are the most valuable assets one can get books. And also for householder communities to put their money and resources, time into book distribution is like setting up the best kind of fire yagya and putting in all your assets. You throw ghee, you throw grains. And so in this age, the Sankirtan yagya, and very specifically book distribution, is the most powerful kind of yagya. So as we go out in the world, we earn money, assets, take it all, you keep some, and put it into the fire of Sankirtan, book distribution, and record how much you're doing, make plans, you're making a map, and make plans to distribute more and more books, and everything else will thrive if you do that. All the other programs will come up as well. Go Premanande Haribo! Vanchakalpaduruvascha Kripasinabhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nantakuti Vaishnavindiki Jai. And we thank everyone for joining us online today too. And what is the next program? And now we'll have an Artik ceremony. Hare Krishna.